I always thought God sent subtle signs, like rainbows. That afternoon, he used a rusty screw in the church parking lot. When my tire exploded at the New Light Church, I just thought I had bad luck. 5 minutes later, I saw my husband step out of a black SUV. He was in a tuxedo, holding the hand of a woman in a white dress as they walked right into the sanctuary. He was supposed to be in Chicago. I am Julia Ramirez. I am 34 years old. I live in Santa Aurelia, Arizona, which is a nice way of saying I live in a beautifully beige suburb where the heat tries to kill you for 6 months of the year. My job title is Senior Forensic Analyst at Obsidian Lantern Forensic Analytics. This means companies pay me a lot of money to find out where their money went. I track digital footprints. I find the lies hidden in Excel spreadsheets. I trust data. Data does not wake up one day and decide it loves someone else. Emotions are unreliable variables. Spreadsheets are truth. That is why the blowout felt like such a personal insult. I had just finished a 4-hour volunteer shift at the New Dawn Community Church, smelling like industrial disinfectant and lukewarm tater tot casserole. I was sticky, tired, and ready to go home. I turned the key in my sedan, pulled out of the parking spot, and bang! It was not a gentle hiss, it was a gunshot, a violent, metal-on-pavement screech, followed by the immediate, accusing thwack 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 of shredded rubber. The universe had just yanked the emergency brake on my life. I steered the lurching car to an empty corner of the lot, right under the big, non-judgmental gaze of the stained-glass Jesus. The air smelled like burnt rubber and profound disappointment. I got out and kicked the offending tire. A single, rusty screw was embedded near the rim. "You have got to be kidding me," I muttered. I dialed roadside assistance. The automated voice was painfully cheerful. After navigating a phone tree designed by Satan, I finally got a human. "We'll have someone there in approximately 15 minutes, the operator chirped. 15 minutes is the universal code for sometime between now and the next ice age. It is the same 15 minutes every guy who was just running late ever told me before I met Ethan. I climbed back into the driver's seat, the interior already heating up like a pizza oven. I cranked the AC, fuming. I was stuck, to kill time. I did what I always do. I opened my work email. I started digging through a travel expense report from a regional manager I knew was booking 5-star hotels and claiming they were motels. Amateurs. I was deep into cross-referencing hotel receipts with Instagram location tags when a vehicle pulled into the reserved spot near the chapel entrance. I recognized it instantly. A black, obscenely large SUV. Ethan's SUV. My first thought was not suspicion. It was confusing. Ethan was supposed to be in Chicago. He had kissed me goodbye at 5 this morning, smelling like his expensive travel-sized cologne. "Big pitch, babe," he had said. 2 nights at the Westin, trying to land the largest client of my career. He was supposed to be checking into his hotel right about now, not pulling into the New Dawn Church parking lot on a Tuesday afternoon. I watched from behind my own tinted windows, a perfect one-way mirror. The driver's door opened. Ethan Hollister stepped out. My husband, the man who lived in expensive joggers and athleisure tops, was wearing a full-tailored black tuxedo. His hair was not plain hair. It was slicked back, gleaming with product. A perfect, crisp bow tie sat at his throat. He did not look like a tired financial advisor. He looked like a groom. He looked like he had just stepped out of a catalog shoot for the man who has everything. My breath hitched. I shrank down in my seat, purely on instinct. The passenger door opened. A woman emerged. She was in her early 30s, maybe, blonde. She was wearing a simple, elegant, tea-length white dress. It was not a sundress. It was a wedding dress. She was holding a small, tasteful bouquet of white flowers. Ethan turned to her. He smiled that smile, the one I thought was mine, the one he used when he said he was proud of me. He held out his hand. She took it. He did not just hold her hand. He interlaced his fingers with hers. He laced their fingers together like it was the most natural, practiced gesture in the world, like they had done it 1,000 times. My heart was not breaking. It was seizing. My pulse hammered in my ears, a frantic drumbeat against the sudden, cold silence in my car. I could not breathe. This was not happening. This was a mistake, a prank, a theme party. They walked towards the chapel steps. A woman in a floral dress, a church coordinator, hurried out to meet them. I cracked my window, just a fraction, the air thick and hot. I heard Ethan's voice, calm, happy. "The bride is ready," he said, his voice carrying clearly across the empty lot. "Let's not keep the future Mrs. Hollister waiting." Mrs. Hollister. I am Mrs. Hollister. I was sitting right there, 40 yards away, with a shredded tire and a mouthful of ash. As if on cue, a small group of church volunteers, people I had been serving casserole with an hour ago, walked past the SUV. They were laughing. "Isn't it just beautiful?" one woman said to another. "A private ceremony. So romantic. Just like a Hallmark movie," her friend agreed. "He seems so devoted. It's wonderful they found each other." They had not seen me. They were all looking at the happy couple. They were looking at my husband and his bride. A private ceremony. My name was definitely not on that invitation. They disappeared behind the heavy frosted glass doors of the sanctuary. The doors closed with a soft, final whoosh. My phone buzzed in my hand. It was roadside assistance. "Hi, Mrs. Hollister?" A new, equally cheerful voice said. "Looks like our driver is running a little behind. Should be another 15 minutes. My hand was shaking, not with sadness, not yet. It was shaking with adrenaline. The kind of adrenaline I get when I find the hidden ledger, the offshore account, the deleted email. The fog of shock cleared, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. The forensic analyst took over. I said, "That's fine," into the phone. My voice remarkably steady. I hung up. My mind, which had been spinning in chaotic, emotional circles, suddenly snapped into focus. This was no longer a marriage. This was the case. I raised my phone. My hands were still trembling, but I held the camera steady. Click, a photo of the black SUV's license plate. Click, a long shot of Ethan, his back to me, the tuxedo fitting him perfectly as he held the door open for her. Click, a blurry shot of the woman in the white dress, her blonde hair pinned up. These were my first exhibits. Exhibit A, B, and C. My husband was not in Chicago. He was in Santa Aurelia, committing bigamy in the house of God. And I, Julia Ramirez, the woman who uncovers lies for a living, was about to start the audit of my goddamn life. I sat there, gripping the steering wheel of my disabled car. Long after the frosted glass doors of the sanctuary clicked shut, the tow truck driver, when he finally arrived a full 45 minutes later, a new record in 15-minute promises, took one look at my face and wisely skipped the usual cheerful small talk. For one wild, brief, cinematic moment, I had considered storming those doors. I pictured myself, smeared in sweat and casserole grease, kicking open the doors during the "speak now or forever hold your peace" part. I would hold up my rusty screw. I object, I would scream. Also, "You owe me for a new radial tire." But I did not move. Part of it was shock, a paralytic fear that turned my legs into concrete blocks. But a stronger, colder part of me took over. It was the analyst, my professional instinct, the one that pays my mortgage, whispered in my ear. "You never, ever go into an interrogation based on emotion. You never show the suspect your hand until you have all the evidence. Rushing in there screaming would only give him time to hide the ledgers, to delete the files, to craft a new narrative." I was terrified. Yes, but my curiosity, my bone-deep, obsessive need for the full picture, was stronger. I did not just want to catch him in a lie. I wanted to catch him in the entire system of lies. This was not a moment for yelling. This was a moment for data collection. I had the car towed to the Firestone on Main. "Just bad luck, ma'am," the tow truck driver said, unhooking the chain. "You have no idea," I muttered. I called an Uber. The ride home was surreal. The driver's car smelled like synthetic pine and old fast food. As we drove through the familiar, Sun-baked streets of Santa Aurelia. I kept seeing the image, like a flashbulb burn on my retinas. Ethan's fingers, the way they interlaced with hers. It was not the clumsy, experimental grip of a new fling. It was the comfortable, possessive, practiced grip of ownership. The insult of it was a physical weight, pressing the air from my lungs. The absurdity was a close second. Here I was, Julia Ramirez, the woman who could find a single fraudulent $5 expense claim in a 90,000-page corporate audit, a human lie detector. I track money that does not want to be found, and I could not track my own husband. He was supposed to be in Chicago. My God. I had even glanced at his flight confirmation email that morning. I am an expert at finding the truth, and I have been living inside the biggest, most insulting lie of all. I got home to our empty, quiet house. Our beautiful, neutral-toned, open-concept house. It looked the same. The gray sectional sofa we argued about, the abstract rug I loved, the quartz countertop kitchen he insisted on. It all looked like a stage set, a diorama of a happy marriage. I took a long, hot shower, washing off the smell of the church kitchen, feeling strangely calm. It was the calm of the mainframe right before you initiated a catastrophic system reboot. At 9:15 p.m., exactly when his flight from O'Hare was scheduled to land, allowing time for baggage claim and the drive home. His SUV, the same black SUV from the church parking lot, pulled into our driveway. I was sitting on the sofa, nursing a glass of water, my laptop open. I was, for all appearances, exactly where he expected me to be. The front door opened. "Jules, I'm home. God, what a day." He walked in. The transformation was breathtaking. The tuxedo was gone. He was wearing the pre-approved costume, a wrinkled dress shirt, his travel blazer slung over one arm, his tie expertly loosened. He had even managed to look convincingly exhausted, with a faint sheen of sweat on his forehead that I suspect was artfully spritzed from a water bottle. It was a masterpiece of performance art. He dropped his carry-on bag by the door. "The client meeting ran forever," he sighed, rolling his shoulders. "I think we got the account. But they're animals, Jules, just ruthless." He leaned down to kiss me. I did not flinch. His lips were warm. He still smelled faintly of his expensive cologne. But it was fresh. This was not the 5 a.m. this morning cologne. This was the 5 p.m. this afternoon for my wedding cologne. "You okay?" he asked, looking at me closely. "You look tired." "Just a long day," I said, my voice a perfect imitation of normal. "The pitch went well." Then, "Yeah," he said, moving to the fridge, already pulling out the leftover pizza from the night before. "The team at Gibson's, that's the restaurant, was great, but the clients, Mr. Tanaka and Ms. Wells, just grilled me for 3 straight hours." He was good. He was so good. He had names. He had a restaurant name. He was not improvising. This was a script he had written, memorized, and rehearsed. This was not a mistake. This was not a moment of weakness or a spontaneous lapse in judgment. This was a strategy. This was a long-term, systemic fraud. The realization did not break my heart. It made me furious. But it also fascinated me. The sheer, colossal audacity, the work he had put into it. "What time did your flight home leave?" I asked, scrolling idly on my laptop, as if I did not care. The 6:30. I think United. It was delayed on the tarmac for almost an hour. You know O'Hare." He had an answer for everything. He sat at the kitchen island, microwaving the pizza. The smell of pepperoni filled the air. My husband, the bigamist. I watched him. I watched the way he rubbed his eyes, the manufactured sigh. And I started doing what I do best. I started running the diagnostics, pattern double life, obvious, financials. Where did the tuxedo come from? The dress, the flowers, the ring, the venue, anomalies, the recent spike in business travel, the way he started going to early morning prayer meetings at a different church, one across town, the way he suddenly avoided talking about New Dawn, the church we attended, my church. He finished his pizza, standing up, and wiped his mouth with a paper towel. "So," he said, his voice casual, friendly, loving. "How was your day at the church? Everything goes okay with the volunteer lunch?" The room went silent. The only sound was the low, electric hum of the refrigerator. I almost laughed. I almost choked. The sheer, magnificent gall of that question. He had to know I was there. Right? No. He did not. He was just that pathologically compartmentalized, in his mind. I was at the church serving casserole while he was at the same church getting married. He had not seen my car. He had been too busy being a groom. A slow, cold smile must have touched my lips, because I could feel the muscles move. I looked up from my laptop, meeting his gaze. "It was fine," I said, my voice perfectly level. "Uneventful. Just church." He nodded, satisfied. "Good. Well, I'm beat. I'm gonna hit the shower and crash." He leaned in to kiss me again. I turned my head slightly so it landed on my cheek. "Go," I said. "Rest. You earned it." He smiled, relieved, and headed upstairs. I heard the sound of the shower turning on. I sat there in the quiet. I realized, in that moment, that I was a phenomenal actor. He had no idea. He thought he was the only one performing. I did not sleep that night. I could not. I lay in our bed, in the dark, listening to the sound of his even, contented breathing beside me, the sleep of the sociopathically innocent. I listened to the dishwasher running its final cycle downstairs, a soft, rhythmic shushing. I watched the headlights from passing cars sweep across the ceiling, shadows dancing and disappearing. My marriage of 7 years was over. I knew that. But this was not going to be a messy, screaming divorce. This was not going to be a fight over who kept the sofa. This was a forensic audit. I made a promise to myself in that darkness. Staring at the ceiling, I would not scream. I would not cry. I would not confront him. Not yet. I would do what I am paid to do. I would follow the money. I would follow the data. I would build a case so thorough, so detailed, so ironclad, that the truth would not just come out, it would detonate, taking his entire fabricated world with it. I closed my eyes, and in the darkness, I began to draft the outline of my investigation. Item 1, bank accounts, shared, and any hidden solo accounts. Item 2, credit card statements, all of them. American Express, Visa, the store cards. Item 3, church records, both New Dawn and whatever prayer meeting church he had been attending, donations, membership, venue booking. Item 4, travel logs, flight histories, hotel bookings, car rentals. Item 5, his phone, his laptop, the shared iCloud. He thought I never checked. Everything was going on the table. My husband thought he had just pulled off the performance of a lifetime. He had no idea. The audit had just begun. At 8 o'clock in the morning, after my husband, the happy groom, had left for his legitimate job. I called my boss. I used my most pathetic, congested voice. "David," I croaked, "I have a splitting migraine. I must have slept on my neck wrong. I'll be online, but I'm keeping the camera off. I can barely see." "Feel better, Julia," he said, already distracted. "Just get that expense report done." "Will do." The moment the call ended, my migraine miraculously vanished. I went to my home office, pulled the blackout curtain shut, and sat in the cool darkness. I did not log into my work server. I logged into our joint bank account. The audit had officially begun. I started where all good investigations start: follow the money. We were diligent about our finances. We tithed 10% of our joint income to New Dawn Community Church. It was an automatic payment, predictable as the sunrise. I scrolled through the transaction history. There it was, our monthly tithe to New Dawn, and there, right below it, was a second automatic payment, one I had never seen before. $500 a month, every month. For the last 6 months, the recipient was not New Dawn. It was the Riverstone Chapel New Founders Fund. I had never heard of Riverstone Chapel. A quick search told me it was in Copper Heights, a brand new, disgustingly wealthy, master planned suburb about 45 minutes west, a town we had no reason to ever visit, a town I was certain I had never set foot in. This was not a tithe, this was a membership fee. Next, I pulled up the shared American Express statement, the one we used for points. I exported the last 6 months to a spreadsheet. I filtered by vendor, by date, by location. I focused on the dates Ethan had claimed to be traveling for business, the Chicago trips, the Denver conference. The data lit up like a Christmas tree. On the days he was supposedly eating deep dish pizza in the Windy City, he was actually in Copper Heights. There were charges at a florist called the Blooming Vow. There were multiple charges at a high-end, romantic-looking restaurant called Il Paradiso, always for 2 people, always over $200. There were charges at a white lace bridal boutique. He was not just sloppy. He was arrogant. He was using our joint card. No, wait, I looked closer. He was cleverer than that. He was using a classic money laundering technique, structuring. He put the small charges, the dinners, the flowers on our shared Amex. They were small enough to get lost in the noise of our daily lives. But the big charges, the wedding dress, the venue deposit he was paying for from a different account. His methods were identical to the white-collar criminals I investigated. He was partitioning his funds, spreading the fraud across multiple platforms to avoid detection. He was washing his double life. I felt a cold, professional admiration. He was good. I was just better. But where was the big money coming from? I ran a full credit check on myself. My score was, as always, excellent. But there was an inquiry on my file I did not recognize. From 2 months ago, First National Bank of Arizona. It was a hard pull for a mortgage application. My blood ran cold. I kept digging. There it was. A new mortgage. Approved. The primary borrower, Ethan Hollister. The cosigner, Julia Ramirez. My social security number was right there on the digital paperwork. The property address was a townhouse in the Vista del Sol development, on the outskirts of Copper Heights. I am meticulous. I check our accounts weekly. How had I missed this? Because he had set the new account to paperless billing, routed all correspondence to a new PEO box, and used a private email address I had never seen. But he needed my signature. I scrolled down to the last page of the application. He had forged it. He had traced my signature, probably from our own mortgage documents, and digitized it. He had used my name, my credit, my identity, to buy a house for his other wife. My hands were shaking. I closed my eyes, took a breath, and went to the next file. The shared iCloud. The one he thought I only used for photos of our cat. I opened the Find My app. I checked his location history. I cross-referenced the dates of his Chicago trips. Every single time, the same pattern emerged. A blue line showed him leaving our house at 5 in the morning. Driving west, not south to the airport, but west. The line stopped right at the address in Vista del Sol, and then, for the next 48 hours, the data would flatline. Location sharing disabled. He had not been flying anywhere. He had been driving 45 minutes away to his second home, turning off his tracker, and living his other life. I opened the data analysis software I use for work, the one I use to build charts tracing embezzled funds through offshore shell corporations. I created a new project file, Hollister. I started to build the map, a node for me, a node for Ethan, a node for Mara Lennox, the name I'd heard the wedding coordinator say. I linked our joint account to the Riverstone Chapel. I linked the Amex to the Copper Heights restaurants. I linked my social security number to the Vista del Sol townhouse. I linked the Chicago travel dates to the location-disabled pings. A beautiful, complex, terrifying spiderweb of deceit bloomed on my screen. It was a work of art, a masterpiece of sociopathy, and at the center of it all, connecting every lie, was the church. He was using the infrastructure of faith as a holding company for his fraud. I thought I had reached the bottom. I thought I had found the worst of it. I was wrong. There was one last place to check. Our insurance broker. We had standard life insurance policies on each other, taken out when we bought our house, $250,000 each, a sensible, responsible, married people thing to do. I logged into the portal. Our 2 original policies were there, And so was a new one, a term life rider, added 3 months ago, insured Julia Ramirez, payout a separate, additional $1 million, beneficiary Ethan Hollister. I clicked the policy documents. The premium was being paid out of his private bonus account. My signature had, once again, been forged. He had not just been planning a new life. He had been calculating the monetary value of my death. He had looked at me, his wife of 7 years, and decided I was worth more as a corpse than as a partner. That was the moment the heartbreak stopped. It did not fade. It shattered. It was replaced by something else, something cold, and hard, and focused. I needed the final piece, the proof of yesterday. I went back to iCloud. I opened the shared calendar he thought I never looked at. I looked at yesterday's date. The entry just said, Chicago, client pitch all day. But then I checked his archived email. He was a meticulous man. He never deleted anything. He just archived it, thinking it was hidden. I searched the archive for New Dawn. An email popped up from the New Dawn Community Church administrator, sent 2 weeks ago. Subject Hollister Lennox Ceremony Confirmation. Dear Ethan and Mara, this email is to confirm your booking for the private sanctuary ceremony package on Tuesday, November 12th, at 2 p.m. We are so excited to be part of your special day. God bless. The New Dawn admin team. Tuesday, November 12th, 2 p.m. The exact day, the exact time my tire had exploded in that parking lot. He had not just gotten married at a church, he had gotten married at my church, the church where I volunteered, the church he knew I would be leaving right around that time. My God, the rusty screw, the flat tire. It had not just been a sign, it had been an invitation. I saved the email as a PDF. I saved the insurance policy. I saved the mortgage application. I saved the bank statements and the location data. This was no longer a personal betrayal. This was not a messy divorce. This was a major criminal case. He had committed wire fraud, bank fraud, identity theft, and bigamy. He had abused the trust of a religious institution and systematically stolen from his own wife. He thought he was a financial genius. He was just a common criminal, and I was the forensic analyst who was going to write the final report. My stack of evidence was beautiful. It was also, I had to admit, purely circumstantial. I had bank fraud, identity theft, and a forged signature on a mortgage. But to connect it all, to truly understand the narrative he had built, I needed the one thing my spreadsheets could not give me, the human element. I needed to meet Mara Lennox. Going to the police now would be messy. It would give Ethan the chance to play the victim, to paint me as the hysterical, jealous wife. He would lawyer up, and Mara would be shielded, protected, possibly even spirited away. I would never get the full story. And I, more than anything, wanted the full story. Was she a willing accomplice in his cons, or was she just another Mark, like me? Was she his partner in crime, or his biggest victim, data point, Mara Lennox? Acquisition strategy. Infiltration. I needed a new identity. I called my best friend, Ray Martinez. Ray is a graphic design genius who thinks ethical is a mild suggestion. I met her at her studio, laid out the entire story in 10 minutes, and watched her face go from shock to a kind of gleeful, righteous fury. He recycled the church, she said, her hands already flying across her keyboard. Oh, honey, no, we are going to build you a legend. What's the name? Lena, I said. Lena Torres, from Albuquerque. Lena Torres, Ray repeated, typing. I like it. She sounds organized, but spicy. In 2 hours. Lena Torres existed. Ray bought a domain https google.com/search QA's Sacred Event Solutions.com. She populated it with a slick, minimalist design. She grabbed stock photos of tasteful, expensive-looking church gatherings and galas, all muted golds and elegant floral arrangements. She photoshopped logos onto podiums. She created a testimonials page with glowing quotes from Pastor Dave and the Diocese of New Mexico. Lena Torres, our creation, was a faith-based event logistics and fundraising consultant. Her specialty, maximizing donor engagement while maintaining spiritual integrity. "You're a genius," I told Ray, watching her build the About Me page. "He forged your name on a mortgage, Julia," she said, not looking up. "The least I can do is forge a website. Now, go buy some new clothes. Lena Torres would not be caught dead in your sensible work blouses." Phase 2. The bait. I used a new, anonymous email address, routing it through 3 separate servers. Lena Torres TES. Google.com, search, QS, Sacred Event Solutions.com. I drafted the email. I sent it not to New Dawn, but to the public info address for the Riverstone Chapel in Copper Heights, Ethan's new financial and spiritual home base. "Dear Riverstone Chapel Administrative Board," I wrote, my tone breezy, professional, and slightly obsequious. "My name is Lena Torres. I am an independent consultant. I was so moved to hear of the recent union of 2 of your devoted members, Mr. Ethan Hollister and Ms. Mara Lennox. What a beautiful story of new beginnings. I am reaching out with a unique proposal, a post-wedding community gala, to both celebrate their new life and act as a major fundraiser for your New Founders Building Fund. My expertise lies in securing high-level donors and managing transparent budgets. I would love to offer my services, pro bono, to help make this a cornerstone event for your community." I hit send. I targeted his 2 greatest weaknesses, his ego and his greed. A public celebration of him, tied directly to the pot of money he was already stealing from. It was like offering a shark a steak-wrapped grenade. The response came in less than 24 hours, not from the general admin, but from Mara Lennox, RN. "Dear Ms. Torres," the email read, "your proposal is so incredibly generous. The church board forwarded me your email. Ethan and I have been dreaming of a way to properly celebrate with our new church family. A fundraiser is a beautiful idea. Would you be available to meet for coffee? I am free Thursday afternoon." I was in. I suggested a neutral location, a busy, noisy Starbucks near Riverstone, far from my own neighborhood. I spent an hour getting ready. I was not Julia. Julia wore tailored slacks and had her hair in a severe professional bun. Lena was different. I put on the clothes Ray had forced me to buy: bootcut jeans, expensive-looking boots, a flowy but structured blouse, and 2 silver turquoise necklaces. I left my hair down, straightening it until it was a sheet. I wore my non-prescription blue light glasses. I even changed my perfume. When I walked into that Starbucks, I felt like a different person. Mara was already there, sitting at a small table, anxiously stirring a drink. She looked up, and my first thought was a bitter, unprofessional. Damn, she was pretty. But it was not that. She looked nice. She looked exhausted. She had dark circles under her eyes, the kind you only get from working 12-hour shifts in an ICU or from loving a liar. She was not the picture of a blushing, triumphant new bride. She was the picture of a woman who desperately wanted to be happy. "Ms. Torres Lena," she asked, her voice soft. "Please, call me Lena," I said, sliding into the opposite chair. I gave her a smile I hoped was warm and not the rictus grin of a person auditing her husband's new wife. "I'm Mara. Thank you so much for this. Your email was like a sign." "I'm happy to help," I said, settling into my role. "Tell me about your vision for this event." And she did. She talked about wanting something intimate but meaningful. She talked about how much Riverstone Chapel meant to her, and then she started talking about Ethan. "He's just the most incredible man I've ever met," she said, her eyes welling up with genuine, unforced tears. "He's been through so much, more than any one person should have to bear." I sipped my coffee. "Oh," I said, my voice dripping with Lena's professional empathy. "His first wife," Mara said, her voice dropping. She leaned in conspiratorially. "He probably would not want me telling you this, but it was just so tragic. Her name was Julia." I did not blink. I did not flinch. I just nodded, my face a mask of compassionate listening. She was not a good person, Mara continued, parroting the lines he had so clearly fed her. She was cold. All she cared about was money and her job. She hated that he was a man of faith. She forbade him from going to church. She told him his tithing was a waste of good money. She just abandoned him, left him completely broken. The story was so neat, so perfectly crafted to make me the villain. I was the cold, godless, money-obsessed career woman who had crushed this good man's spirit. He had not just lied, he had reverse-engineered my entire personality to create his perfect antagonist. He was so lost when I met him, Mara whispered. He was just starting to find his way back to God. And she's still out there. He's terrified of her. He says she's vindictive. That's why we had the ceremony at New Dawn, a different church, just a tiny private thing, to be safe from her. I had to hand it to him. He had thought of everything. Well, I said, letting out a breath, it sounds like you two deserve a beautiful, public celebration. To show the world, and maybe even this Julia, that your love is strong and protected by your community. Yes, Mara said, grabbing my hand across the table. Her skin was warm. That's exactly it. Oh, Lena, you get it. I do, I said, my voice firm. I gently pulled my hand back. He even gave me this, she said, her joy returning. She held up her left hand. He had it custom made, to symbolize our new beginning. I looked at the ring. It was a beautiful, platinum, vintage-style setting, an oval-cut diamond, probably 2 carats, flanked by delicate scrolling. It was the exact same, custom-designed, vintage-style setting as the ring on my own left hand, which I had purposefully left in the car. He had not even bothered to design a new ring. He had just swapped the center stone. Mine was a cushion cut. Hers was an oval. The man was not just a bigamist. He was lazy. He had recycled the design of our marriage. The rage was so sudden and so sharp it almost made me dizzy. I steadied myself, forcing Lena's smile back onto my face. Mara, I said, leaning in, I have an idea. It's a little crazy, a little big. I love big ideas, she said. Why have 2 events? Why a private wedding and a separate fundraiser? Let's combine them. Let's make this gala a real wedding, a public blessing, your first dance, the cake, all of it, and we wrap it in a fundraiser for the new hall. We make Ethan the face of the campaign. The man who found his new life at Riverstone and is now building its future. We can get the local press. We can get major donors. We make it a night no one will ever forget. Mara's eyes were wide, shining with the possibilities. Could we do that? We can, I said. Do you think Ethan would be open to it? Are you kidding? She said, pulling out her phone. He'll love it. He's always saying he wants to do more for the church. Let's call him right now. She speed-dialed him. He picked up on the second ring. Hey, baby, she cooed. You will not believe the woman I just met. Lena. Tell him. She put the phone on speaker. And I, Lena Torres, the faith-based event planner, pitched my husband, Ethan Hollister, the plan for his own public execution. A gala, a public blessing, and a fundraiser. I heard his voice, slick with excitement. Mara, that's brilliant. That's inspiring. Yes, 1,000% yes. Lena, I don't know who you are, but you are an angel sent from heaven. I'm just happy to help, I said, looking Mara right in the eyes. When I left that coffee shop, I walked to my car and gripped the wheel for a full minute. I had just done it. I had laid the foundation, dug the pit, and built the stage. I had handed my husband the microphone and the spotlight, and in a few weeks, in front of God and everyone, he was going to walk right up and enthusiastically, greedily, jump right in. My new role as Lena Torres event angel got me a seat at the table, literally. It was a small, claustrophobic table in a windowless administrative office at the back of Riverstone Chapel. The room smelled like industrial carpet cleaner and stale coffee. Present were Pastor Glenn, a man with a soft voice and eyes that never seemed to focus; Mason Ward, the church treasurer, who looked like an anxious accountant perpetually about to deliver bad news; and my husband, Ethan Hollister, the picture of pious, innovative leadership. And then there was me, Lena, in my turquoise necklace and empathetic smile, holding a branded Sacred Event Solutions notepad. "The gala is a godsend, Lena, truly," Pastor Glenn began. "But we're in a bit of a tight spot with the building fund, which is where we'd pull the seed money for deposits." "Tight?" Mason Ward interjected, shuffling a stack of printouts. "Pastor, we're not tight. We're hemorrhaging. The Founders Fund had over $75,000 in it 3 months ago. Now it's closer to 30. Ethan, seated at the head of the table like it was his corporate boardroom, steepled his fingers. He looked concerned, but not surprised. The mark of a man who controls the narrative. "Mason, we've discussed this," Ethan said, his voice smooth and placating. "We're in the growth phase. You have to spend money to raise money. Those were all necessary outreach and donor cultivation expenses." Mason's face turned a blotchy red. "But the withdrawals, Ethan, they're just large and vague. Donor relations, consulting fees, promotional expenses, and they were all signed off using the temporary financial authority the board granted you, the authority you requested to work with high-level sponsors." My pen hovered over my notepad. I did not dare look at Ethan. I looked at Mason, my face a mask of professional concern. "That sounds stressful." "Mason," Lena said, her voice soft. "It's so hard to build a budget for a new event when the foundational accounts are in flux. I find that when I'm designing my sponsorship packages, it's all about transparency. Donors want to see exactly where their money is going." I turned my empathetic gaze to Ethan. "Ethan, to make your role as the face of this gala as powerful as possible, I'll need to create some very detailed financial charts for the sponsorship prospectus. Pie charts showing current funds versus gala fundraising goals. Could I, perhaps, just take a quick peek at the detailed ledger, just the last 3 months? It would help me understand the spending patterns so I can frame our ask more effectively." I was, in essence, asking the bank robber to show me his withdrawal slips so I could help him rob the bank more efficiently. Ethan beamed at me. "Lena, that's exactly the kind of proactive thinking we need. Mason, open the books for her. Let's show her everything. We have nothing to hide. This is all for the glory of God." Mason, grumbling, turned his laptop around and opened the Excel spreadsheet. My heart rate kicked up. It was the thrill of the hunt. He scrolled, and I watched, my brain cataloging, cross-referencing, connecting. There were the consulting fees, paid to a shell LLC I did not recognize. There were the promotional expenses, which lined up perfectly with the dates and amounts for the florist and bridal shop in Copper Heights. He was using the church's money to pay for his wedding, and then I saw it, the big one, a single wire transfer, made 2 months ago. $25,000, the Payee Vista del Sol Development Group. The memo line, down payment, Unit 14B. I almost stopped breathing. It was the house. It was the goddamn house he bought with my forged signature. I had assumed he used his own bonus money. I was wrong. He had not just made me a co-signer on a fraudulent loan. He had used the church's building fund to pay the down payment. He was stealing from the collection plate to buy a house for his mistress, and he was using his other wife's credit to secure the loan. The sheer, symbiotic, parasitic brilliance of the fraud was breathtaking. He had created a closed loop of theft. I took a sharp, audible breath. Both men looked at me. "Wow," I said, covering my mouth, playing the part of the impressed consultant. "You guys have been busy. That's a lot of momentum. Thank you. Mason, this is exactly what I need." I took out my phone. "Mind if I just snap a few pictures of the screen for my records? My handwriting is terrible." Before Mason could object, Ethan waved a hand. "Of course. Whatever Lena needs." Click, click, click. I captured every line item, every date, every memo. I had the complete, unadulterated proof. I left that meeting in a daze of cold fury, my phone heavy in my pocket. This was so much bigger than I thought. That night, after Ethan was asleep, he had started sleeping in the guest room, claiming he was too stressed from work and tossing and turning, a convenient lie that kept me from having to share a bed with him. I made a call. I did not call a divorce attorney. I called Gloria Penn. Gloria Penn is not the lawyer you call when you want to consciously uncouple. She's the lawyer you call when you want to salt the earth where your enemy's house once stood. Her specialty is complex asset fraud in high-conflict family and institutional law. She eats men like Ethan for breakfast. I met her the next day at her sterile, terrifyingly expensive office in Scottsdale. I paid in cash for the 2-hour consultation. I did not cry. I did not yell. I opened my laptop and presented my Hollister fraud map. Gloria, a woman in her 60s with razor-sharp gray hair and a bright red suit, listened without saying a word. She just sipped her espresso. When I got to the part about the $1 million life insurance policy, she finally spoke. "Well," she said, a slow, appreciative smile spreading across her face. "He's not just an adulterer, is he? He's ambitious." When I finished with the Vista del Sol mortgage and the church-funded down payment, she actually laughed, a short, sharp bark. "My God, this is glorious," she said. "It's not just a divorce case, it's a RICO case. This is a man who, presented with a cookie jar, decided to steal the jar, the shelf it was on, and then take out a loan against the kitchen. I'll take it. In fact, I'd do this one for free. I'll pay your full retainer," I said. "I just have one condition." "Oh, I'm the one who exposes him, publicly. I've already built the stage. I just need you to make sure that when he falls, he doesn't get up." Gloria's smile was the scariest, most beautiful thing I had ever seen. "Consider it done. We'll file an ex parte emergency motion to freeze all assets, yours, the shell company's pending the fraud investigation, and I'll be making a nice, quiet, anonymous phone call to a friend in the district attorney's office, embezzlement from a religious organization. Oh, they love that. It makes for fantastic press." My legal flank was secure, but there was another flank to cover the church itself. Riverstone's board was full of Ethan's new, wealthy friends. They would want to bury this, to protect their own reputations. I needed an ally on the inside. I went back through the Riverstone member directory. I found her Eleanor Briggs, a retired federal judge, a founding member of the church, and from what I'd heard in the meeting, the primary, old money donor who had been asking Mason the hardest questions. She was conservative, but fair. She hated disorder, but she hated thievery more. From a public library computer, I assembled a minimum viable package. Just 3 documents: the Vista del Sol mortgage application with my forged signature, the bank statement showing the $25,000 transfer from the church fund, and the New Dawn wedding confirmation. I mailed it to her house in a plain manila envelope. No note, no return address, just the data. I knew a mind like hers would be able to connect the dots. I was in full war room mode, living on coffee and adrenaline, existing as 2 people. At night, I was Julia, the quiet, tired wife, watching Netflix. By day, I was Lena, the hyper-competent event planner, fielding calls about floral arrangements and PA systems. And then, as I was finalizing the seating chart for the gala, my personal phone buzzed, a text from Ethan. "Hey, thinking of you." The text read, "I know I've been distant. This Chicago deal has been a killer, but this new gala I'm working on, it's going to be a new chapter, a fresh start, for me and for the person I love. I can't wait for what's next." I looked at the message, this perfect, 2-timed, oblivious declaration. He was texting his wife about how excited he was to start a new life with his other wife. The audacity was a black hole. I smiled, my thumbs moving over the screen. I wrote back, my reply laced with a poisonous, perfect ambiguity. "I'll be there, Ethan. You can count on it. I'm going to make sure it's a night you will never, ever forget." I hit send. This was not about a broken heart anymore. That had healed. or at least cauterized, into something harder. This was about a man who used faith as a financial instrument and people as collateral. This was not revenge. This was a reckoning, and I was just the forensic analyst chosen to deliver the final report. Gloria Penn's conference room looked less like a legal office and more like a war room. We had taken over the main wall, the one with the floor-to-ceiling whiteboard. It was a beautiful, chaotic masterpiece of a plan. Ray, my graphic designer turned co-conspirator, had pinned up floor plans of the Riverstone Chapel's new, barely finished community hall. The hall itself was Ethan's pet project, the physical manifestation of the Founders Fund. He was so busy draining. He'll be so proud to show it off, I had explained to Gloria. It's the perfect stage. He's already built it for us. I love it, Gloria had said, tapping a red marker against the board. Poetic justice is my favorite kind. Okay, let's talk about the timeline. The sting, as it were. Ray, Gloria, and I became a three-woman heist crew. We mapped out every detail camera angles from the church's existing and very basic security system, the exact location of the AV booth, the timing of the speeches, and most importantly, the arrival of the sponsors. The guest list is the key, I said, pointing to my laptop. We're not just throwing one party, we're throwing two, in the same room, at the same time. This was the most delicate part. I divided the plan into two distinct narratives. For Mara's world, the Riverstone Chapel community, her hospital colleagues, her friends Lena Torres, was executing the dream a grand wedding reception fundraising gala, generously sponsored by an anonymous donor who was moved by their story. Mara, bless her naive heart, handled those invitations herself, giddy with excitement. For my world, the story was more personal. I sent a separate, elegant evite to my family, our old mutual friends, and my colleagues from Obsidian Lantern. The colleagues were the most important. They were, by nature, professional skeptics. To my dearest friends and family, my invitation read, As you know, Ethan has been working so hard and traveling so much, and we've been disconnected. I want to surprise him. I'm throwing a reconnection gala, a surprise vow renewal. It would mean the world to me to have you there to witness us start our new chapter. Please, please keep it a secret. I want him to be truly surprised. The lie tasted like acid, but it was necessary. I needed my people in that room. I needed witnesses who knew me as Julia Hollister. That's cold. Jules, Ray had said, looking over my shoulder as I designed the invite. I love it. He's the one who wanted a new chapter with the person he loved. I'd replied. I'm just giving it to him. The centerpiece of the entire plan was the AV booth. The church had a part-time tech, a college kid named Noah Patel, who was more interested in his sound levels than the sermons. I, as Lena, had spent an hour with him, complimenting his setup, his component rack. This is a serious system. Noah, I'd said, feigning impressed ignorance. Mara and Ethan are providing a video look back at their love journey, but I also have a small presentation for the fundraising portion, a donor appreciation slideshow. The cues are very specific. Do you think you could link the two files to run as one seamless presentation? The fundraiser part just needs to autoplay after their video ends. Yeah, easy, Noah had said, already bored. Just give me the files on a USB. I'll load them into the main projector. You just tell me when to hit play. I gave him the USB. The first file was, indeed, a 10-minute slideshow of Mara and Ethan. Mara had sent it to me. It was full of smiling selfies at the Grand Canyon, photos of them at Riverstone potlucks, and a shot of them outside the Vista del Sol townhouse, holding a sold sign. It was sickening. The second file, spliced to begin 1/10 of a second after the first one ended, was different. It was the presentation I had prepared for Gloria. It was my fraud map. It was the side-by-side scanned marriage certificates, the forged mortgage signature, the bank statements from the Founders Fund, the $1 million life insurance policy, all set to a very dramatic, royalty-free classical music track. Now the authorities, Gloria said, pacing in her office. We can't have uniformed officers crash the party. It's too chaotic. It gives him a chance to run, to create a scene, to make us look like the aggressors. So what do we do? Ray asked. We invited them, Gloria smiled. As guests. She had already made her calls. The DA's office is sending a deputy prosecutor. He'll be there as Mr. Harris, a potential high-level donor, and the IRS, who is very interested in the shell company Ethan set up, is sending an agent from their criminal investigation division. She'll be Ms. Thorne, another philanthropist. They'll be seated at a table near the back. They will observe. They will not act until I give the signal, which will be after your presentation. Julia. It was perfect. They were not cops. They were just sponsors, there to see the show. There was one last detail, one that had been bothering me. Mara, I said, my voice quiet. She has a daughter, Lily. She's 7. Gloria and Ray both looked at me. I saw her in the background of some of Mara's photos. I continued. I will not. I cannot do this in front of a 7-year-old. I don't care about Ethan, but that child is innocent. So she's off the guest list, Gloria said, shrugging. No, that's the problem, I said. Mara thinks this is her wedding reception. She'll be the flower girl. She'll be there, in a new dress, front and center. I need her somewhere else, safe. As Lena, I proposed a solution to Mara the next day. The main hall will be so loud, I'd said, full of concern. And the speeches will be so boring for a little one. Why don't we set up a VIP kids room in one of the Sunday school classrooms? We can hire a bonded babysitter, get a TV, movies, and pizza. She'll have way more fun. And you and Ethan can be in the moment. Mara had called me a lifesaver. The trap was set. Every gear was oiled, every mechanism in place. Then, a final, unexpected complication. I was reviewing the final RSVP list from Mara's side, and I saw 2 names I had not anticipated. Harold and Eleanor Hollister, Ethan's parents. They lived 3 hours away in Tucson. They had always been distant, politely disapproving of my career, my heritage, my lack of religious fervor, and according to Mara's spreadsheet, their RSVP note read, "So thrilled to finally celebrate with you both." Finally, celebrate. I had always wondered. I had sent them polite, vague emails after Ethan's Chicago trips, and their replies were always just off. They knew, or they suspected. They knew their son was unhappy, and they had chosen to look the other way. They had always avoided meeting Mara, always citing their health, but for a public gala, a party, they were suddenly well enough to attend. I felt a flash of white-hot anger. "Should we disinvite them?" Ray asked, seeing my face. I looked at their names on the list. I thought about their years of polite, cold condescension. "No," I said, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. "They're not a complication. They're a bonus." I dragged their names to a new table, Table 1, front and center, right where they could have a perfect, unobstructed view of the train wreck their son had engineered. "They've been avoiding the truth for years," I said. "It's time they were forced to look at the receipts." The night before the gala, I stood in my office, which had now become the official war room. The seating chart was complete. It was a masterpiece. I had placed Table 1, with Ethan's parents, right next to Table 2, with my own parents and my brother. My colleagues from Obsidian Lantern were at Table 3, a perfect line of sight to the main stage. The sponsors, the DA, and the IRS agent were at Table 10 in the back, with a clear view of the exits. 2 worlds, 2 narratives, 2 sets of guests, all meticulously arranged on a single floor plan. Each table was an island of lies, all about to be drowned by the same flood. I looked at the chart. It was not just a plan for a party. It was a 3-dimensional, fully rendered, to scale diagram of my husband's duplicity, and I, the analyst, had just placed the final pin. The plan was set. The invitations were out. The deposits were paid. And then, 3 days before the gala, my lawyer, Gloria, decided to light a small fire to see what would scurry out of the woodwork. She had assembled her own anonymous package, which she felt was a necessary accelerant. It was delivered to Mara's mailbox at the Vista del Sol townhouse. Inside was a high-resolution copy of my 7-year-old marriage certificate, a few candid photos I had taken in the past week of Ethan sleeping on our sofa in the guest room, and a single, handwritten note on plain cardstock. It read, "He's not a widower. He's just a good storyteller." I did not know this was happening until I got a frantic, tearful call from Mara, who was, of course, calling Lena, her event planner. "Lena, oh my God, you will not believe this," she sobbed into the phone. "His ex-wife, the crazy one I told you about, she's stalking us. She sent me fake documents, horrible things." "What kind of things?" I asked, my voice a perfect blend of Lena's supportive but firm efficiency. "She sent a fake marriage certificate and pictures she's trying to ruin the gala. Ethan is so upset. He said this is exactly what she used to do. He said she's sick, that she's always been vindictive." She was reciting his script beautifully. "He's at a hotel tonight. He said he just needs space to pray and figure out how to protect me from her." "That sounds awful, Mara," I said. "Where did she send it?" "To the house." "How did she even get our address?" "It's terrible what unhinged people will do," I said, my voice dripping with false sympathy. "Listen, don't you worry about the gala. It's all under control. You just lean on Ethan. I'm sure he'll handle it." I hung up. Satisfied. The bait had been taken. He was on the defensive, spinning new lies to cover the old ones. Mara was confused, but she was still, for the moment, on his side, or so I thought. Gloria's little firebomb had worked better than either of us anticipated. The next afternoon, my apartment buzzer rang. I was not expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole and my blood turned to ice. It was Mara Lennox. She was standing in the hallway of my apartment building, in my neighborhood. She was not wearing her ICU scrubs or the hopeful, pretty clothes she wore to meet Lena. She was wearing nondescript jeans and a hoodie, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her face was chalky white, and in her hand, she was clutching a familiar-looking manila envelope. She had not just gotten the package, she had looked up Julia Ramirez in the public records, found the address I co-owned with Ethan, and came here. She had come to the home of the sick, vindictive stalker. I realized Gloria's plan had just been shoved into overdrive. Mara was here, now, and she was not here to see Lena. I opened the door. She stared at me. She looked at my face, my hair, my body. Then she looked down at the photo in her hand, one of the candid shots of Ethan on my sofa. My sofa, which was clearly visible in the open-plan living room right behind me. Her brain did the math. The stalker, the ex-wife, and Lena the event planner were all the same person. Her face did not crumple in anger. It collapsed in on itself with a quiet, devastating understanding. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "You'd better come in," I said. My voice was not Lena's. It was mine. She walked in, moving like a ghost, and sat down at the small table in my kitchen. She placed the envelope between us. Neither of us spoke for a full minute. There was no playbook for this. No screaming, no slapping, no dramatic accusations, just a heavy, suffocating silence as the two halves of Ethan's life sat opposite each other, finally in the same room. I made tea. I did not ask her if she wanted any. I just made 2 mugs of chamomile and pushed one toward her. Her hands were shaking too badly to pick it up. "He told me you were cold," she finally whispered, her voice cracking. She was not looking at me. She was looking at the photo of my cat's food bowls by the fridge. "That you were godless, that you hated him for being a man of faith." "And I'm guessing," I said, sitting down, "he told you he was a widower, or at least tragically, heroically divorced from a monster." "A widower," she confirmed, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. He said you died, in a hiking accident, that he was the one who found you. That's what he told the support group where we met. My God, he had not just lied. He had given her a complete, detailed, cinematic universe of bullshit. He told me he was in Chicago, I said, my voice flat. The day you two got married, my tire blew out in the church parking lot. I saw you. I saw the tuxedo. She flinched, as if I had slapped her. Oh, God. You were there. He's good, isn't he? I said, the old sarcasm leaking back. He's a liar, she said, but she was still defending him. He must be sick. He needs help. He was just so convincing. He's convincing, I agreed. But he's not sick. Mara, he's an embezzler. She looked up, her eyes flashing with defiance. No, he is a good man. He's just lost. He loves me. He loves my daughter. This was the moment. I had a choice. I could let this be a fight between two women over a man, or I could make it an audit. I chose the audit. This isn't about love, Mara, I said. I stood up, went to my office, and brought back my laptop. I turned it around and placed it in front of her. This is about wire fraud, I said. I showed her the Riverstone Chapel bank statement. I showed her the $25,000 transfer. This is about bank fraud, I said. I showed her the Vista del Sol mortgage application. I zoomed in on the forged signature. That's my name, my social security number. That's the down payment. He stole from your church to buy the house he put you in. And this, I said, my voice dropping, is about the $1 million life insurance policy he took out on me 3 months ago. She stared at the screen. She read the policy number. She read the payout amount. She read my name. That was the thing that finally broke her. She understood a man lying about love. She could not understand a man calculating a payout. She put her head in her hands and she began to sob a dry, hacking, hopeless sound. I let her cry for a few minutes. I let the data settle. He told me I was his second chance, she choked out, wiping her nose. He said, you are the answer to a prayer I was too afraid to say out loud. I froze, my mug of tea, halfway to my lips, stopped in midair. A cold, hysterical laugh bubbled up in my chest. I could not stop it. I started to laugh, a bitter, ugly, loud laugh. Mara looked up, her face a mask of tear-smeared confusion and anger. What is so funny? I'm sorry, I gasped, trying to catch my breath. I'm sorry. It's just, that's what he told me. 2, on our 3rd date. 7 years ago. It was his killer line. He recycled his vows. Mara? She stared at me. And then, the most bizarre thing happened. Her shoulders started to shake. A small, broken sound escaped her lips, and it was not a sob. It was a laugh, a choked, watery, hysterical laugh. And there we were. The wife and the other wife, cackling like mad women in my kitchen over a cup of lukewarm tea, finally united by the sheer, staggering laziness of the man who had ruined our lives. When the laughter died, the silence that replaced it was different. It was not hostile. It was shared. What about Lily? She whispered, her face pale again. My daughter. She loves him. She calls him Daddy. She's supposed to be the flower girl. I know, I said. I already took care of that. I'm Lena. Remember, I'm the event planner. I arranged a VIP kids room for her, with a babysitter and pizza. She was never going to be in that hall. Mara, I promise you. She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time, not as a rival, not as a monster, but as an analyst. You've been planning this all along, she said. The gala, Lena, it's all a trap. It's a presentation, I corrected. He built a false narrative. I'm just going to present the data. In front of his parents, my colleagues, and your entire church, with a little help from the DA and the IRS. She flinched at the last part. So what now? Now, I said, you have a choice. You can believe he's lost and needs help. You can go back to him, try to protect him, or you can let the truth be told. The gala is in 2 days. The plan is in motion. Nothing changes. You just have to show up, play the happy bride, and let the show go on." She was quiet for a long time. She looked at the mortgage application on my screen. She looked at her own recycled engagement ring. She looked at the manila envelope. "He's not just a liar," she said, her voice so low I could barely hear it. "He put my child in a house he paid for with stolen money. He's not just a bad man. He's a bad investment." She finally stood up, her shoulders back. The ICU nurse was back. The woman who made life or death decisions. "I will be there," she said, her voice cold and clear. "I will be the loving bride. I will smile, and I will watch him burn." "Good," I said, standing up with her. "One last thing. When I take the stage, I'm going to need a second microphone." She nodded, a sharp, clinical nod. We did not shake hands. We did not hug. We just stood there, two women who had been unwillingly cast as opposites in a dead man's script. She clinked her cold tea mug against mine, a silent, bitter toast. In 2 days, we were no longer going to be the wife and the mistress. We were going to be the co-authors of the final chapter. The morning of the gala. I was the first one at Riverstone Chapel. I arrived at 9 a.m., my Lena Torres clipboard in hand, my black-frame Lena glasses firmly on my face. The new community hall was, I had to admit, beautiful. Mara and the church committee had done their work. Round tables were draped in heavy white linen. Thousands of tiny fairy lights were strung from the exposed wooden beams. And on the main stage, flanked by 2 enormous floral arrangements, was a 10-foot-tall vinyl banner, "The Riverstone Founders Fund Building, a Future." It was the most beautiful, well-lit, fully catered public crime scene I had ever seen. I was checking the placement of the head table, Table 1, where Harold and Eleanor Hollister would have a perfect view of their son's immolation when my personal phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Ethan. He thought I was at home, working, probably nursing my migraine, which had become my go-to excuse. The text read, "Hey, wish you could be here tonight. This gala is really something. It's going to be a fresh start. For me, for us. I love you." I stared at the words, the us. Which us was he even texting? Did he think he was texting me? Julia. Or had he, in his magnificent, compartmentalized arrogance, meant to text Mara? Does it even matter, I thought. He lies so fluidly. He probably does not even know which lie he's in at any given moment. I typed back a simple, honest reply. "I will always remember tonight." I put the phone away and turned my attention to the AV booth. Noah, the college tech, was already there, looking stressed. "Hey, Lena," he said, not looking up from a tangle of cables. "We have an issue. The right side speaker array has a mainline buzz, and the main projector, it's, like, flickering. I did it twice this morning." My stomach did not drop. It evaporated. The speakers, the projector, the entire plan, the entire case, my entire life, rested on 2 pieces of cheap, fallible, church basement hardware. "Noah," I said, my Lena voice taking on an edge of steel I did not have to fake. "The universe is not testing us. A piece of hardware is failing. Get a different cable. Reboot the driver. Check the power supply. We are not hoping it works. We are making it work." He looked at me, startled by the intensity. "And the projector," I continued. "We're not using it." "Brrrr, but it's the main one. It's a liability," I snapped. I pointed to a smaller, newer-looking projector on a media cart in the corner. "What's that one?" "That's just the backup. For, like, hymn lyrics. It's now the primary," I said. I pulled my 2 USBs from my bag. One was the one I'd given him. The other was my backup. "This flash drive, the red one, goes into that projector. That is the only file you play. The only one. You will connect it to the soundboard with a hard line. Not with the wireless. Understood?" "Yeah. Okay. Geez," he muttered. "Good. Let's run it. Now. I had him play the first 5 seconds of Mara's video and the first 5 seconds of my presentation. The audio was crisp. The picture was stable. The bomb was rearmed. My Lena phone rang. It was Gloria. "Julia," she said, her voice all business. "Stakes just went up. Our IRS friend is out. She has the flu. The real flu. Not an I'm a coward flu." "Gloria, that's not good." "Shut up." "I'm not finished," she interrupted. "It doesn't matter, because my friend at the DA's office is intrigued. The anonymous package to Eleanor Briggs. It worked. She called the DA's office herself yesterday, demanding an investigation. She thinks she's starting one. She doesn't know she's just walking into the middle of ours. So what does that mean? It means the DA is not just sending an observer. He's sending a deputy district attorney, A.D.A. Markell, a killer. He's not coming as a donor. He's coming as an officer of the court. He wants to see the reactions of the board, the parents, and the groom, all in real time. This just went from a domestic spat to a public hearing. My hand was gripping the phone so tightly my knuckles were white. "Okay, good. What should I do?" "You do exactly what you planned," Gloria said. "You're just extra amazing." Click, she hung up. I was checking the VIP kids' room, which was perfect, with 2 babysitters, a stack of pizzas, and Finding Nemo queued up when I walked back into the main hallway. And I heard their voices, Harold and Eleanor Hollister. They were standing near the coat check, not seeing me. "Just feels wrong. Harold," Eleanor was whispering, her voice tight with anxiety. "A party, when he's not even, free from the first one." "Eleanor, we talked about this." Harold's voice was a low rumble. "The boy said God was leading him. He said the first one was a mistake, a spiritual void. This new girl, Mara, she's a good, Christian woman. It's a fresh start. We're here to support that fresh start. Now, where is the gift table?" They knew. It was not just suspicion. They knew. They knew he was still married to me. They knew about Mara, and they had, in their self-righteous, see-no-evil convenience, chosen to frame their son's bigamy and fraud as a fresh start that God was leading. They had chosen the lie because the truth was inconvenient. I felt the last, tiny, flickering ember of compassion in my heart for them go out. I walked back to the head table and double-checked their place cards. Front, row, center, I was standing by the sound booth. 5 minutes to 6, when my personal phone buzzed again. An unknown number, a text message. "Be careful. He's not the only one who hates having the truth put on a microphone." I felt a cold prickle at the back of my neck. I looked around. The catering staff was lighting candles. A few of Mara's friends were arriving early. A second message from the same number came through. It was not text. It was a picture. My blood did not just run cold. It stopped. It was a screenshot. A screenshot of the email I had sent from the library computer to Eleanor Briggs, the anonymous one. It showed the email client, the date, and the attachments mortgage app, PDF and bank transfer, PNG. Someone was looking at her email. Or someone had hacked my supposedly clean, anonymous email account. Or Eleanor, in her righteous quest, had forwarded my evidence to someone else on the church board, and that someone else was now threatening me. The plan was not mine anymore. It had been compromised. This was not just about Ethan. This was about the system. Mason Ward, the anxious treasurer, Pastor Glenn, the man with the unfocused eyes. Someone else on that board. They were not trying to protect Ethan. They were trying to protect the church. They were trying to protect the Founders Fund. They were trying to protect themselves. My hands were shaking. I walked into the empty hallway and speed-dialed Gloria. "Someone knows," I whispered, my voice trembling. "I got a threat. They screenshotted my email to Eleanor." Gloria was silent for a beat. I heard her take a long, slow sip of something. "Good," she finally said. "Good, Gloria. Good." "It means they're scared," she said, her voice suddenly sharp and clear, pulling me back from the panic. "It means they're scrambling. It means they know you have them. It means they know you're right. You think a threat is a bad thing, a threat is a confession. Julia, it's the sound of the guilty realizing they're trapped. Now, you will walk back into that room. You will put on your Lena smile, and you will not dare back down. The truth doesn't get a softer voice just because a room full of cowards doesn't want to hear it. Break a leg. She hung up. I took a deep breath. She was right. The fear I felt was just a reflection of theirs. I walked back into the hall. It was 6 p.m. The guests were starting to arrive. I walked to the glass doors at the front of the lobby and looked out. I looked past the new landscaping, past the wealthy, well-dressed couples getting out of their BMWs and Teslas. I was thinking of a different parking lot. A hot, cracked, asphalt lot. 45 minutes across town. I thought of the smell of burnt rubber, the thwack, thwack, thwack of a shredded tire, the single, rusty screw. That was the starting gun. This was just the finish line. I turned from the glass, my reflection as Lena disappearing as I walked into the light of the hall. The show was about to begin. The room began to fill, and it was the most surreal sensation of my life. It was like watching two separate, incompatible computer programs being forced to run on the same monitor. My world came in first. My colleagues from Obsidian Lantern, forensic accountants and data analysts, all sharp suits and sharper minds. They were skeptical of the vow renewal concept, but loved me enough to show up with envelopes of cash. They clustered near the bar, already analyzing the room's structural integrity and the gala's cost per head. My parents and my brother arrived, looking confused, supportive. "This is a lot. Julia," my mom had whispered, hugging me. "Are you two okay?" "We will be, Mom," I had said. "Just watch the show." Then, Mara's world arrived, a sea of soft pastels, sensible shoes, and hopeful smiles. Her nurse colleagues from the ICU, looking profoundly grateful for a night away from beeping machines. Her friends from the Riverstone prayer group, all bright eyes and warm, trusting handshakes. They were a different species entirely, and I, Lena Torres, had seated them all according to my design. Table 1, Ethan's parents, Harold and Eleanor. Table 2, my parents. Table 3, my Obsidian Lantern team. Table 4, Mara's ICU friends. Table 5, the Riverstone Church Board, including Mason Ward, who was already sweating, and so on. 2 worlds, interleaved, a perfect checkerboard of truth and lies. At 7:15, the music swelled, and the main doors opened. Ethan Hollister made his entrance. He was in the same black tuxedo from the parking lot. He was glowing. He was a man at the peak of his powers, a king in his own court. On his arm was Mara Lennox, radiant in a second. More elaborate white dress, this one clearly for a reception. Her hair was down. Her smile was wide and bright. And if you did not know her, you would think she was the happiest woman in the world. The Riverstone half of the room erupted in applause. My half of the room looked on in polite, baffled silence. I saw my boss, David, lean over to my brother and ask a question. My brother just shrugged, his face a mask of confusion. I was in constant motion. I was a phantom in a sleek, black jumpsuit, a professional headset clamped to my ear. I was Lena, the maestro. I checked on the caterers. I adjusted the spotlight. I spoke with the babysitter. I was the most invisible person in the room, and the only one who knew the truth. As I passed the Sunday school wing, I peeked through the small glass window of the VIP kids' room. There was Lily, Mara's 7-year-old daughter. She was sitting at a small table with 2 other children, a paper crown on her head, her face smeared with pizza sauce. The babysitter was reading a story. Lily was laughing, completely safe, completely oblivious. I felt a single, sharp pang of something not guilt, but a profound sadness for her. Then I turned and walked back to the main hall. The work was not done. Ethan was working the room like a politician, Mara securely on his arm. He was kissing hands, clapping men on the back, his voice booming with false sincerity. It's a new beginning for us, for the church. He was a vortex of charisma, pulling everyone into his lie. He was making his way toward the stage when he saw me. Lena, standing near the AV booth, speaking into my headset. He broke away from a conversation and strode over, his smile blinding. "Lena," he boomed, grabbing my shoulders in a move of pure, unearned familiarity. You are a miracle worker. Look at this room, the energy. It's perfect." I forced a tight, professional smile. "I'm just happy it's all come together. Mr. Hollister. Mr. Hollister, please, it's Ethan." He laughed. "And I mean it. After tonight, I'm introducing you to everyone. The diocese, the National Council. Every church in America needs a Lena Torres." I looked him dead in the eye. My real name, my real life, was a scream held just behind my teeth. "Thank you, Ethan," I said, my voice as smooth as glass. "I just hope everyone remembers exactly what they see here tonight. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to cue the pastor." I walked away before he could answer. The lights dimmed. A single spotlight hit Pastor Glenn as he took the stage. He was practically vibrating with sanctimonious joy. "Friends," he began, "family, welcome. Welcome to a night of renewal, a night of new beginnings." I watched Ethan's parents at table 1. Eleanor was dabbing her eye with a napkin, her face a picture of proud, willful ignorance. "We are here to celebrate 2 things," Pastor Glenn continued, his arms spread wide. "We are here to celebrate the sacred love of 2 of our most devoted members, Ethan and Mara. A love that found its footing right here, in the arms of faith." A smattering of applause from Mara's side. "And we are here," he boomed, "to launch the next phase of our Founders Fund, a fund that, thanks to the tireless, visionary leadership of Ethan Hollister, is going to build a new future for our children." More applause, this time from the board members. Faith, forgiveness, new starts, that is what we are about. And now, to honor that new start, Ethan and Mara wanted to share a little piece of their journey with all of you. Noah hit the lights. The room went dark. The big screen above the stage, the one powered by the backup projector, flickered to life. The music started. It was a soft, acoustic guitar ballad. The first photo appeared Ethan and Mara, laughing, on a hike. The next Ethan and Mara, smiling with Lily, all of them in matching red sweaters. Then, the shot I had been waiting for Ethan and Mara, holding the sold sign in front of the Vista del Sol townhouse. I could hear the awes from the Riverstone side. I could feel the confusion from mine. My mother leaned over to my father. I could read her lips. Who is that woman? On screen. The video was reaching its climax. A montage of them at church, holding hands, praying. A final, slow-motion video clip of Ethan, in his tuxedo, his wedding tuxedo, spinning Mara, in her wedding dress, in a field. He dipped her low, and in the last frame, he leaned down to kiss her hand. The acoustic guitar swelled to a final, emotional chord. And then, silence. The music did not just fade, it was cut. The romantic image of Ethan kissing Mara's hand vanished. It was replaced by a stark black screen. The entire hall, expecting the lights to come up, was plunged into a sudden, awkward, total darkness. I heard a few nervous coughs. "Is that it?" someone whispered. "Technical difficulties," Mason Ward muttered at his table. And then, in the dead silence, 2 words appeared on the screen in a clean, white, sans serif font. Project Hollister. A new slide clicked into place. Title, A Financial and Marital Timeline. Subtitle, The Data Does Not Lie. A low murmuring, "What?" rippled through the room. I saw Ethan. He was in the center aisle, having just left the stage. He had been smiling, ready to accept the applause. His smile was gone. His head was tilted, as if he had just heard a sound he could not identify. He turned, his body rigid, and looked back at the AV booth. He was looking for Noah, but I was not at the AV booth. The next slide appeared. It was a simple, 2-column table. Left column, official timeline, Chicago conferences, business trips. Right column, actual timeline, Copper Heights, Vista del Sol, New Dawn Chapel. Ethan's head snapped back to the screen. His eyes went wide. The color drained from his face, leaving a sick, pale gray sheen under the dim emergency lights. He looked like a man who had just seen his own ghost. The murmuring in the room grew louder. People were confused, angry, looking around. What is this? Is this part of the show? Harold, what is this? Ethan turned, his eyes scanning the darkness. Frantic. He was looking for Lena. He was looking for a professional, mousy event planner. But Lena was gone. I was standing in the wings, just off stage. I had unclipped my headset and tossed it onto a crate. I had picked up the live, wireless microphone I had hidden there. I took a deep, steadying breath. The slow, dramatic, classical music I had chosen, a piece full of foreboding strings, began to play softly from the speakers. The final slide I needed was on the screen, a side-by-side comparison of two legal documents. I hit the on switch on the microphone. The small click and speaker pop echoed in the hall. The spotlight I had preset with Noah hit me. I stepped out of the darkness. I stepped into the light. The feedback from the microphone was a soft, sharp squeal that cut through the confused murmuring. Every eye in the room snapped to me, to Lena, the planner, now standing on stage, bathed in a single, harsh spotlight. "Good evening," I said. My voice was not Lena's. It was not warm. It was not empathetic. It was the voice I used in boardrooms, the one that carried, the one that did not waver. The room went tomb silent. I saw my mother's hand fly to her mouth. I saw my colleagues at table 3 lean forward, their analyst brains suddenly, furiously connecting 1,000 data points. And I saw Ethan. His face was a white mask of pure, unadulterated shock. This was not in his script. "My name is Julia Ramirez," I said, my voice ringing out, amplified, bouncing off the walls of his new hall. "On some legal documents, paperwork he apparently forgot to file. I am still Mrs. Ethan Hollister." I pointed the microphone at the screen, which now showed a grainy, smiling photo of Ethan and me, cutting our wedding cake 7 years ago. "And tonight," I continued, "I am here for 2 things. First, as the senior forensic analyst who uncovered a long-term, systematic fraud, and second, as the woman whose life was chosen as the collateral damage to pay for this entire performance." A collective, shattering gasp filled the hall. "Noah," I said into the mic, and in the AV booth, the boy hit the next cue. The slide changed. On the screen, in high resolution, were 2 documents. "On your left," I said, walking calmly across the stage as if presenting a quarterly report, "you will see the certificate of marriage for Ethan Hollister and Julia Ramirez. Date October 5th, 7 years ago." I pointed to the other side of the screen. "And on your right, the certificate of marriage for Ethan Hollister and Mara Lennox, date November 12th, 2 weeks ago. You will note," I said, my voice dropping just a fraction, "the distinct and legally inconvenient lack of a divorce decree filed anywhere in between." Ethan was stammering, his mouth opening and closing. "This is a joke. She's sick." Pastor Glenn was frozen, his face the color of old oatmeal. Ethan's mother, Eleanor, let out a low, terrible moan. Mara, I noted, was pale, but her eyes were fixed on me, her hands clasped in her lap, waiting. "He's right. I am sick," I said. "I am sick of the lies, but I am an analyst. I do not traffic in emotion. I traffic in data." The next slide clicked. It was my fraud map. The beautiful, terrible spider web. "Let's follow the money," I said. I used the laser pointer I had taken from the lectern. "This first line shows a series of structured withdrawals from a joint household account, my account, that perfectly matched the deposits on the Vista del Sol townhouse, the one you saw in the pretty picture." I pointed to another line. "This line, this is the one that should interest the board members at table 5. This is a $25,000 wire transfer from your founders fund money you all tithed into a shell LLC, an LLC that, in turn, paid the invoices for this very gala, for the flowers, for the catering, And for the custom tuxedo he's wearing right now. Mason Ward, the treasurer, looked like he was going to be sick. Eleanor Briggs, the judge, was staring at Ethan with a look of such cold fury it chilled me. "He did not just steal from me," I said. "He stole from you. He used your faith as his private bank account." "Julia, stop!" Ethan finally roared, finding his voice. "This is not the place." "I agree," I said, "but the data isn't finished. Because this isn't just a story about bigamy. It's not just a story about embezzlement. It's a story about budgeting." The next slide hit the screen. It was the screenshot of his email to Gloria Penn. "This," I said, my voice finally shaking, not with sadness, but with a pure, cold rage, "is an email from Ethan to a legal consultant, sent 3 months ago. He is asking for advice. He is asking how to get out from under his vindictive first wife. He is asking specifically about the payout clauses on a $1 million life insurance policy, my life insurance policy." The room stopped breathing. "He was not just planning a new life," I said softly. "He was calculating the cash value of my death." That was the moment. Mara stood up. She did not look at Ethan. She looked at me. In the absolute, stunned silence. Her heels clicked on the floor as she walked from her table to the side of the stage. She picked up the second, waiting microphone. She turned to face Ethan. Her voice, when it came, was not the sob of a victim. It was the clear, steady voice of an ICU nurse calling a time of death. "You told me she was dead," Mara said. Her voice amplified, echoing. "You said she died on a hiking trail and that you were broken. You told me God sent me to you. You said I was the answer to a prayer. To heal your wounds." She took a step closer to him. "It turns out, Ethan, God did not send me to be your wife. He just sent me to be a witness." "Mara, baby, no, this is all a misunderstanding," he stammered, his hands outstretched. "Thank you, Ms. Ramirez, Ms. Lennox. We can take it from here." The voice came from the back. The man I knew as Mr. Harris stood up. He was no longer a donor. He was a man in command. "My name is Markel," he said, walking down the center aisle. 2 other men, who had been seated with him, fanned out to block the exits. "I am a deputy district attorney with the county. We have been investigating allegations of embezzlement, wire fraud, bank fraud, and insurance fraud against Mr. Hollister." He stopped at the foot of the stage. "As of 30 minutes ago, a judge has signed a warrant, all assets, the Vista del Sol property, the Shell LLC, Mr. Hollister's personal accounts, and, I am afraid, the Riverstone Founders Fund are hereby frozen, pending a full criminal investigation." It was over. Ethan looked at the DA. He looked at the men at the doors. He looked at his parents. He looked at the church board. He was trapped. He did the only thing a coward could do. He yelled at the person who had turned on the lights. "We could have settled this," he screamed at me, his face a mask of purple rage. "Privately. This was a private matter. You did not have to drag the church into this. You did not have to ruin them." He pointed at the terrified, weeping members of the congregation. I looked down at him from the stage. My husband. The man I had loved. And the case I had just closed. "You're wrong, Ethan," I said, my voice clear and final. "You did this. You chose to use this community as your stage. You hid your lies behind their faith. You chose to make God's house your theater." I clicked the microphone off and set it down. "I just turned on the lights." Markel nodded to his men. They moved in. Past the white linen tables, the sound of the crowd was low, shocking him. Ethan's mother was sobbing into her husband's chest. Pastor Glenn was staring at the floor. Unable to look at anyone, the investigators flanked Ethan. "Mr. Hollister, you need to come with us." "No, wait." As they pulled his hands behind his back, Mara walked right up to him. The room watched as the sound of a ratchet click, the closing of handcuffs, echoed in the hall. She did not slap him. She did not say a word. She simply reached down, took the recycled, 2-carat, oval-cut diamond ring from her left hand. She took his cuffed hand, turned it over, and calmly, silently, placed the ring in his open palm. Then she closed his fingers around it. She let go and stepped back, her face clean, her hands empty. I did not stay to watch them lead him away. My work was done. I walked off the side of the stage, past a weeping Pastor Glenn, past my stunned, silent, but suddenly very proud-looking colleagues. I walked down the main hall, through the lobby, and pushed open the heavy glass doors into the cool Arizona night. I walked out of the building, and my heels clicked on the asphalt. I walked across the parking lot, right past the spot, my spot, the place where the universe had pulled the emergency brake. I stopped at the concrete curb. I looked down. It was faint, washed by the sprinklers and baked by the sun. But it was still there. A thin, black, rubber skid mark, the scar from the day it all began. I looked at my own left hand, the cushion-cut diamond, the one he had not even bothered to take from me. I slipped it off my finger. The platinum was cool against my skin. I did not throw it. I did not weep. I simply bent down and placed it on the concrete curb, right next to the black mark. I stood up straight, my hand feeling strangely light. If the universe wanted to send a message, I whispered to the empty parking lot. This time, I've read it. I turned my back on the church, on the rings, on the entire performance, and I walked away, carrying the only thing he could not contain, could not forge, and could not steal: my own story. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. So please comment below, and let's share our thoughts. If you love this story, please subscribe to Zoe Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it an extra boost by hitting the hype button so more people can hear it.